All right. Here we go, guys and gals. And boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, drivers.
Welcome back to the Loose Wheel Show, episode number 22. I'm Andrew Hazel. Ethan Ignatowski is with me as usual. You want to say something, Ethan?
So what's up?
I didn't hear that. I might be deaf. I might be blind.
Or it didn't pick up.
Or it didn't pick up. I don't know. Anyway, let's get right into the reviews. Spain
And
happened.
now for
Ethan,
last
tell
week's
me about
race
that.
reviews.
Yeah, Spain did happen. Not one of the most exciting tracks on the calendar, but it was a full weekend for the F1 circus. F3 was there, F2 was there. The F3 sprint race was won by Ivan Dominguez. I believe that's his first victory of any kind in Formula 3. Could be wrong on that. And then the feature race was won by Rafael Camara, because who else would it have been? The sprint race for F2 was won by Richard Verschoor, and then Arvid Lindblad won his first F2 feature race later on in the weekend. But on to the main event, Formula One. Oscar Piastri started on pole. Lando was, he was solid at times during the early stages of the weekend, but couldn't quite carry over the momentum from Monaco. He started behind Oscar with Max behind him. And Oscar, he got a really good launch off the line. He went into turn one unchallenged, and Lando kind of got his chain snatched by Max for P2. Russell was also trying to give it a look to see if he could get past Lando, ended up leaving a door open for Lewis to pass him for fourth. And then later on in the lap, Lewis's teammate Charles Leclerc passed Russell for fifth. So the Ferraris jumping all over George Russell there. Some other turn one stuff later, or down the grid, Albon got some damage on his front wing. I think Sainz might have got damage on his front wing too, because I know he changed his front wing at some point in the early stages of the race as well. There were some drivers that were being investigated for going off track and gaining an advantage, but they all took the runoff road, so it was deemed okay. We used to have this problem at Sochi where like the runoff road was like low key faster than actually taking the turn, especially on lap one when like all the cars are bunched up together. So creates a bit of a weird situation, but like you're taking the runoff road, like you can't be penalized for taking the runoff road. Um, Unless I mean maybe they could if they felt that you just gave absolutely zero effort to make the turn, but that's not what happened here. So everything was fine. End of lap one, start of lap two. After just trying to get past Isaac Hadjar on the third sector of the lap, Fernando Alonso, he left himself vulnerable to Nico Hulkenberg, who passed him on the front straight to get into P10. It was the first of just some monster moves for Nico. And those two would actually do battle for like the entire first sector. And like Andrew, they were swapping back and forth and back and forth. But in the end, Hulkenberg did hold on. So some excitement there early on in the race. On lap six, the first of what was a two-stop race for many teams got started. Alex Albon, he came into the pits, and in the following laps, more drivers would come in as well. On lap 13, Lando Norris finally got past Max Verstappen on the straight with DRS assistance, of course. On lap 14, Fernando locked up and went into the gravel. I think it was turn 5, but he was able to keep going. And we didn't really have a lot of crazy on-track action happening for a while. Lap 26, Albon was the first of the two-stop guys to come into pit for their second stop. But unfortunately for him, a few laps later on lap 29, he had to retire after he made more contact. I don't remember if he made contact with Liam on the first lap or if it was on or if it was before he retired. He made contact with Liam Lawson one of those times, and the other time it was a stake driver. Bortoleto, I think it would have been. I don't remember to be honest, but either way, another broken wing for Williams, their third of the day. So they just decided to call it quits with Albon. I don't know if they had another wing. I mean, if they retired the car, I would think not. But at the same time, if they did put on another wing, they would have just been so far behind that it might not have been worth it. But I mean, you always want to run, even if you're super far behind. So I assume that they didn't have another wing. Um, but then nothing really happened. I mean, Spain was it's been improved in terms of its racing due to them kind of reshaping the final sector a little bit, but it's still not the best track for passing. And it was more of a strategy race than anything. Most teams were doing two stops and they were just, on slight tire offsets that kind of made things a little interesting. But Red Bull was actually on a three stop strategy, Andrew. Yuki Tsunoda pitted on lap 44, and Max came in to pit on lap 48 for both of their third stops. And it was actually the fastest strategy out there. I'll get into the Red Bull strategy talks a little bit more later because I think people are being dumb, Andrew. Um, we'll get into that later. Um, on lap 52, Lando was trying to catch up to Oscar Piastri in first. He got the gap within 2 seconds, but he was slowed down massively by Lawson and Behrman battling. And Max was also slowed down by traffic. And it's Max, so you already know he made his disappointment scene. A couple laps later, lap 55, Kimi Antonelli had a blown engine and it brought out the safety car. The entire field pretty much came into pit for their third set. But like I said, Andrew, Red Bull already was on their third set of tires. So they had to pit for a fourth set of tires. And those were hard tires, not a good racing tire around Spain. Max was super unhappy about that, but it's what Red Bull had to do. They weren't banking on a safety car. I don't think there's been a safety car in Spain for quite a while, so they weren't expecting it. Hannah Schmitz, the lead strategist at Red Bull, cooked up, quite frankly, an amazing strategy with the three-stop strategy. It was the fastest strategy out there. No one else had thought of it. No one else dared to do it, but Red Bull did, and they had the best strategy. They put Max in a great position to at least be third, if not challenge for second there. But the safety car made it threw a wrench in the plans. And you can say, well, Red Bull shouldn't have done such a risky strategy if a safety car could have let it to fall apart. But it's Formula One. In racing in general, you always have to take some risks with the strategy, and the strategy was paying off until they did have to go on those hards. And you can say, okay, well, just stay on the used mediums. Well, they could have, but either way, they would have been facing a massive tire offset by those ahead and those behind. So you might as well go onto the hards, which are at least a new, clean racing tire. Um, but it didn't quite work out for Red Bull. But I think Hannah Schmitz, the lead strategist, she's facing a lot more backlash. I mean, she doesn't deserve any backlash at all, of course, but she's facing backlash online that's just not necessary at all. She did her job very well. She's the best on the grid. Like people get too upset when something doesn't go their way one singular time, and it's just like, yeah, it's racing. It's not always going to go your way. Sorry. And that's just life in general, but some people are just so used to everything going their way that when it doesn't, it's the end of the world. Sorry, things
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of these people have kind of the same thing, and people watch their jobs, and whenever they screw up in their job, they get criticized online to see how they feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, Seriously. Um, so we went green on lap 61. Max almost lost the entire car. He was able to keep it on track, but that did open the door for Charles Leclerc to pass him. And then George Russell gave him a good run for his money. Max went off track to stay ahead, but he took the runoff, and Red Bull was thinking that he was going to get like a penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So they wanted him to give the position back to George. Now, what's funny is post race, the stewards were like, yeah, we weren't going to give Max a penalty or anything because we felt that George pushed him off. We felt it was Max's corner and Max took the runoff road anyway, or something like that. I don't know. I didn't read the actual directive or report, whatever it's called. But that's the gist of it. Max wasn't going to get a penalty, but Red Bull thought he was. So on lap 64, they were telling him to give the position back to George. And that made Max super, super upset. But he slowed down, he let George pass him, and then he just crashed right into him. And he went ahead. Like seriously, he just turned. It was a left-hand corner, and Max just turned right to crash into George. Now, it wasn't major damage for either guy. I don't even know if it was any damage at all. But the fact that he just bumped George because he was pissed off is it's so childish. I mean, it made sense when Max Verstappen was 17 years old coming into F1, had this huge ego because he was a literal child and he was insanely fast. But like you're like what, like 27 years old now and you're still acting like a child when things don't go your way. Why are you crashing into George, Max? Why? You're costing yourself and your team an insane amount here because you can't get your emotions in check. And also, yeah, it's not like it was some massive hit or anything, but this is Formula One. It's not bumper cars. It's not wreck fest. Like, why are we crashing into each other?
Shout
It's
out Wreckfest. What a game.
it's it's not okay. Like it just really isn't. And
why he's done that. Need to take it personal.
I'm gonna you've heard a little bit of it already, but I'm gonna play a clip from George Russell a couple years back.
Need to take it personal. I have no idea why he's done that. And he cannot deal with adversity. Whenever anything is not going his way, he lashes out with unnecessary anger and borderline violence. You know, I've seen it in Brazil in the past with Ocon. You saw it in 21 with Lewis, and then Mexico with Lando. First race of the year in Budapest when he didn't have the most dominant car, crashes into Lewis, slamming his whole team. That is not a guy who I respect. And
So there you have it. George Russell, it's from a few years ago, but it works perfectly well here. Look, I respect Max Verstappen because I think you have to. He's a generational talent and he's won 4 championships in a row. He is undoubtedly in the upper echelon, inner circle Hall of Fame type Formula One driver. But he just keeps doing these really, really unnecessary and not very smart things, Andrew. And it's infuriating. It's impossible to defend, but of course he has people, he has his groupies defending him. But it's just crazy to me that this is the face of F1. Because he can't control his anger. Like if he could just control his anger, then it's like undoubtedly, yeah. But it it's a little it is what it is, I guess. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but it is what it is.
It
The guy that we
is
haven't
what
talked
it
about,
is.
sorry.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
That great clip from somewhere.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier how Nico Hulkenberg's pass on Fernando Alonso for P10 was the first of some pretty big moves for him. We haven't talked about him too much, but he was making his way up the grid throughout the race, Andrew, and on lap 65 on pure race pace, this man passed Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari down the straight. Yes, DRS, so if you don't want to call that pure pace, whatever, but he was within a second and he made the move stick and he didn't let Lewis get past him. Passed Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari for P6. Hats off to Nico Hulkenberg. Driver of the day doesn't mean anything at all, but he deserved it. Also on lap 65, Alonso got past Liam Lawson for 10th. So Fernando Alonso did, in fact, get his first point. Ended up being 2 points of the year. The scoreless streak is over. He can put that behind him. Next lap was the last lap, lap 66. Oscar Piastri, he just came home and won the race. I mean, it has been quite an amazing season from him, really. And then post race, Max did get a 10-second time penalty, which dropped him all the way to 10th. His antics, like I said, cost himself and the team greatly. So behind Piastri on the podium, and then the rest of the top 10 was Norris and Leclerc, and then it was Russell. Nico Hulkenberg, still can't believe that he finished where he did. Lewis Hamilton, still can't believe that he's struggling this much right now. Isaac Hadjar, who once again in the points, great drive. Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, like I said, ended up with 2 points, finishing in ninth, and then Max Verstappen in 10th. Now, putting a rating on it, I don't know. Some people really liked this one, but I honestly didn't think it was anything special. The safety car did bring a lot of excitement at the end of the race, and Max's antics did make the race more exciting. I'll say that. But that was like a small fraction of the race. So the best I can do is say it was average, 5 out of 10. Because like I said, wasn't anything special. We barely talked about any passing on track, and it's been a pretty solid F1 season. So I don't think that this race was anything to write home about. I'm just glad we're done with the unpassable triple header, even if Imola to start it off was probably the best race of the season. Um, yeah, Spain's not a super amazing track. We know this. We didn't expect much. We didn't get much. 5 out of 10 at best.
One thing I would like to add now that Fernando has points, the two drivers on the grid that are yet to score are Gabriel Bortoleto and Franco Colapinto. Yes,
Yes.
Jack Doohan hasn't scored, but he is not on the grid anymore because he doesn't have a seat.
Yes.
I think you have to have a seat to be on the grid. I think that's how it works. Anyway,
Well, he'll still be in the season long standings, but yeah, I mean he's technically not on the grid right now.
yeah. Nashville Super Speedway, even though it's not really super speedway, it's more like a short track. Oh,
Super-ish speedway,
no, it
perhaps.
isn't even ish. It's like where we're going to this week, Michigan. That's just I think yeah, it's just a speedway. I think it might be a raceway, but that's a super-ish speedway. Nashville Super Speedway it has zero qualities of a super speedway, but it's just named that. I guess the speedway is indeed a little super, but it's
Well,
not.
isn't there one company that owns all the super speedways and it's just like Speedway
No,
Incorporated,
well,
something like that? Or am I wrong?
there are NASCAR the France family who owns NASCAR owns a portion of the NASCAR tracks that you used to be called International Speedway Corporation before they bought that out, which I was actually part owner of as a stock investor
Ah,
act before they bought it out. So yeah, that's kind of how that is. Um, So ISC stands for International Speedway Corporation. I don't know if I said it. They own like a good chunk of the NASCAR schedule: Talladega, Daytona, Phoenix, Homestead. Those are the four that comes to mind. I'm not going to name them all because I don't feel like it. And then there's another group, which is the Smith family. They're Speedway Motorsports Incorporated. Uh, they don't like they own a bunch of other tracks like Nashville, Atlanta, Sonoma, I believe Richmond as well. That the just but the naming Raceway and Speedway means nothing. It's,
Yeah. Okay.
that's what I'm trying to get at. But
Yeah.
anyway, like I was saying, Nashville's somewhere between a mile and a half racetrack and a short track. Or it is not even a short track. It's like a Dover and or a Loudon. No one really knows what they are. So it's kind of in that group, but closer to the mile and a half racing. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the actual racing. Carson Hocevar won the truck race. Stage one, Chase Briscoe, he led on pole. This is the second straight week that Briscoe had the pole very fast in qualifying. They need to get their race pace figured out. They've had at least three poles this year for that 19 team. AJ Allmendinger, he had a penalty post inspection pre-practice that resulted in him doing a stop and go. Larson was in the wall after contact, but nothing huge. Green flag pit stops. Wallace had to drive through. Hamlin passes Briscoe late to win stage one. I think it was around nine laps to go or so in the stage. Stage two, Ryan Blaney was first off. Uh, Stenhouse spun after contact from Hocevar.
Yeah, I want to say something about that
Go
real quick.
ahead.
So this Hocevar and Stenhouse incident was between two drivers that have both been under fire for, you know,
Being aggressive.
being aggressive, sure. I was gonna say, call a spade a spade. They've been called out for what people deem to be driving dirty. I think that if anything, this was just kind of a racing incident because Hocevar had the bottom lane and Stenhouse also, he wants to come in and defend it, but like, should he have been told that he wasn't clear? Maybe. Should Hocevar backed off to let Stenhouse in and not cause a wreck? In my opinion, yes. But like, it's so touch and go there that like, yeah, I think if anything, it is a little bit Hocevar, but I think that, it's okay to call things just a racing incident, even if it's between two guys that have, you know, the track record that they do. You don't have to always look so hard to assign blame, in my opinion. Like I said, if we're gonna give it to anyone, I think it is a little bit of Hocevar's fault. This is coming from a guy that really likes Carson Hocevar as his personality and everything. Inside the car, I admit he makes some questionable decisions. But that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's a fair take. It's interesting seeing after the Earnhardt documentary releasing. Some people are saying, "Oh, fan, we need drivers that drive like Dale did."
Yeah.
Most of our
I
comment,
don't think we do. Sorry. But
and then we have another portion after seeing Carson Hostfars and said, "Oh, we need it. We can't have this type of driving." So it's interesting to kind of see the two sides of this coin, saying, "Oh, this is good," or "Oh, this is bad." Right or wrong, it's very interesting to watch that debate. I really don't have a stake in it. I see both sides. I think both arguments are very well. Uh, both arguments are very solid arguments. I'm not for or against. I'm just here. Okay, it's everything's I think a case by case basis.
yeah, you have to judge everything. I don't remember who said it. It was um I'm blanking. It was someone on the commentary team though. They're like, you have to judge every incident individually. And yeah, I agree.
Um, then on um the caution pits, we had a split strategy. Hamlin, Cindric, and Logano took gas only. Blaney, Elliott, and Truex took two tires. Those were the first three on each strategy. And immediately we had Larson, Gregson, and Bowman crash. I don't know, was it Larson? I don't remember. That's what my notes says, so that's what we're going with. Um,
Sounds
I, no, I don't think it was Larson, but that's what my notes say. Anyway, the Bowman had significant damage. He fell many laps down, and Gregson was out of the race. The other driver wasn't really that wasn't that affected. I don't remember. And as soon as we get going on the restart, Christopher Bell spun after contact from Eric Jones, just really hyper aggressive racing on the restart from both drivers. Jones going looking low very early, and then Bell trying to take that away. So, yeah, after we got going, Tyler Reddick had an unscheduled stop. And then Corey Heim and Brad Keselowski got together. That would resulted in Corey Heim crashing. So just a bad race from 2311 as a whole. That's the three of their cars, and then Riley Herbst is running. So that's I don't know where he finished, but that's probably gonna be a disappointing result regardless of that car. Um, then we got going, and then Ross Chastain was in the lead at this point. He stayed out in one of these cautions, and everyone else pitted. And then Larson and Blaney simultaneously passed Chastain, and but Blaney was the one that got to the lead first. He won stage two. Logano was first off. Uh, Barry and Keselowski had tail end penalties. We had a Ryan Preece spin. Blaney got the lead. Then we had green flag pit stops, and Blaney wins. I would give this race a 5 out of 10. Had some good moments, but did have its fair share of boring racing. Ethan, it sounds like you watched the race. Where would you agree with
Uh,
the rating?
I didn't watch the entire race. I saw bits and pieces. Not I don't feel like I saw enough in total to put a fair number on it.
All right. IndyCar, they raced at Detroit, and this is a circuit ever since they moved it to from Belle Isle to the streets of downtown. Not a lot of people have liked the move uh, because the racing was solid at Belle Isle. I wouldn't say it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. And the Detroit has a lot of 90-degree corners, which are just boring when the circuit is 90-degree corners half the time. So, but in the past, Detroit has put on the new Detroit, downtown Detroit versus the Belle Isle Street Circuit with the fountain. The new Detroit has put on some good racing. Um, Dennis Hauger won the ND next race. He's won all but one this year. The other one being won by Lockheed Hughes. So we had Colton Herter on pole, but Christian Lundgaard dive bombed him on the start. Got the lead for maybe a few seconds, and then Herter reclaimed the lead because Lundgaard washed up the track. Rinus VK in pits, he had some sort of mechanical issue that took him out of the race completely. He was running, I think, top 10 at the time. So that's really disappointing for them because that 18 car has been so much faster than in the past, or not necessarily in the past, but definitely compared to last year. They are leaps and bounds better. Then we had our first run of green flag pit stops. I think that everyone was planning to do a two-stop race pit around lap 20 with the greens and then finish the race on the blacks. But the greens just didn't last that long, so they pitted around lap 10 and did a three-stop race. Instead, that wound up being the move for I think everyone except for Kiffin Simpson. He'll come into play later. But at the full field didn't do green flag pit stops at this point because the people on the blacks that were gonna make that black tire last. So the pit cycle was really weird from the start. Uh, you had Nolan Siegel, who was staying out, as I said, I think he was on the black tire, dive bombed Colton Herta. This is racing for a position, even though Herta was in the technically the leading of the guys that group, but he wasn't leading on the track. So it's four positions. Siegel dive bombed Herta. That opened the door for Kirkwood to get past them both. And then we had a caution from uh, Felix Rosenquist spinning. His teammate Marcus Armstrong got held up from that. That did bring out a caution. And then Scott McLaughlin, he pitted under the yellow and came out in front of the 27. Not quite sure how that worked exactly, but that's how it did. So McLaughlin was the quote unquote leader on his strategy. But at this point, there was a to bunch of cars staying out that were 21, 15, and 45. The 21 of Christian Rasmussen, I think that's the first time in his IndyCar career that he's led, followed by the 15 of Ray Hall and the 45 of that is Foster. And then and then there's nine other cars, and one of them being Nolan Siegel. On the restart, McLaughlin spun Siegel. Those cars continued to stay out. And then the Ray Hall meltdown, team meltdown, that is, began with Devlin DeFrancesco slow because, say it with me, Ethan, he lost a wheel.
Ah, he lost a wheel.
That brought out a caution. When he get back going, again, McLaughlin had a drive-through penalty. Colton Herta hit someone because I have a 13 listed here, but there's no 13 car. Uh, so maybe it was Power or Ferrucci. Probably was Ferrucci.
Andrew, you gotta get on top of this, man.
Not that that's a mistake on my part. Just I don't know. Then we had green flag pit stops, full cycle. Actually, no. The rest of the cycle happened. So your Ray Hall, your Loongard, your Simpson, Dixon was on the strategy, Foster, but Graham Ray Hall, he pit twice due to a loose wheel. So Ray Hall, two cars already with wheel problems, and they were real problems too. See what I did there. Anyway, the podium after stops actually was Power that Herta hit. Was Kirkwood, Power, Herta, and then Rasmussen in the wall. I don't think that was a caution. And then 90 of Callum Ilott was in the wall after he had a loose wheel. So loose wheels coming in. More loose wheels incidents in this race than loose wheel show co-host. So I'm just putting that out there.
That's stats that exist but do not matter.
Yes. Few cars had pitted before the yellow. Uh, Ferrucci, Power, Herta were your first off, but three cars had stayed out, and those were Ferrucci, Simpson, and Armstrong. Then we had Malukas just hit the 10 car in the wall. When we got going again, he had a stop and go penalty. So Alex Palou, his podium streak is over. I don't know if he would have had a podium if he were to finish the race, but he would have been a solid like fourth place or so. But this doesn't open up the championship yet, so no need to count your chickens before they hatch because there's nothing hatching uh, from those hypothetical eggs. Not quite sure what I was going on about there, as the gap from first to second is still 90 points from Pelot to Pato Award. Kyle Kirkwood, a few points back of Award, and Lundgaard is right there as well, and it's a ways back to anyone else in the point standings. So kind of just telling you that now before I go anywhere else. So we had Kirkwood passed Armstrong for P3, then he went on to pass Simpson for P2, and then he had left wing damage after passing Simpson. So we thought, oh, maybe Kirkwood might have some issues here. We'll see what happens. But then he got the lead. Then Power passed Simpson and Ferrucci for P2. And the Ray Hall, two of the cars had been bitten by this hypothetical snake. And then Louis Foster, the one car who hadn't, he had a suspension failure at the end of the straightaway. And this is the long straightaway, when I think the longest straightaway in Indy cars non-oval courses. I think the Long Beach front straightaway is up there. That might be longer. I don't know. Uh, Certainly Thermal or St. Petersburg. I don't think their front straightaway is that long. But regardless, one of the worst place to have a suspension failure he had, which veered him into the wall, and then he collected the 60 car. Foster couldn't control that. A very hard crash. I believe it took the medical team only 12 seconds to reach both cars after
Pretty
the,
good.
which is a really a good job there. Red flag, both drivers were okay. After the red flag, Ferrucci passed Power for P2 and Herta passed Power for P3. And your podium was Kirkwood, Ferrucci, Herta, first all U.S. states podium driver since 2020 when it was Rossi, Herta, and Hunter Ray. I want to throw back to last year when Santino Ferrucci called, I don't know who was who, but he was referring to the two Andretti drivers when he said a very not good thing about them being together in Pride Month. So it was, oh, that's kind of ironic a year later that they're all on the podium. And shout to the Andretti team for on their post-race podium photo, just straight up blocking Santino Ferrucci's face with a rail. I would give this race a 9 out of 10.
And now for the news.
Shout out.
Into the news. Santino Ferrucci penalized after Detroit. He does keep second place. I think it was about a 20-point penalty or so for Ferrucci. Let me see. Does it say here? It is 25 points for being underweight. So Ferrucci would have been top 10 in points in 10th, but he slides down all the way to 14th, allowing Marcus Armstrong, David Malukas, Joseph Newgarden, and Alexander Rossi to pass him. So that is a crucial penalty for Ferrucci. I want to give a quick update to the leader circle cutoff because that's a lot of money to these teams that do make it. Right now, the board on the bubble is Stingray Rob. He is in the last position with 78 points. Foster is 2 points back, and DeFrancesco is 7 points back. Jacob Abel a long ways behind, 38 back. So that's a huge point, financial bonus. I think that's around $1 million. I think it might be 2 million a plus. So that's a huge thing to kind of keep track of. So Zach Brown, he had an interview with some people. He just kind of like gave his thoughts on the state of IndyCar. He said a lot of good things. He said a lot of okay, obvious things. And then he said one really stupid thing. And that's what we're going to focus on today. He said he wanted to shrink the grid to 24 cars. And he's like the fans, like doesn't matter to them that they're running 27 cars. Let's shrink the grid to like 24 cars. And I say, no, Zach Brown, we want more cars. Andrew's biggest gripe about the charter agreement, if you remember, Ethan, was the fact that it took 2 cars off the grid. Taking cars off the grid because, well, quite frankly, because you can, is not a good reason to take cars off the grid. I I think
Agreed.
having as many cars on the grid as possible is a good thing. Uh, I'd like to get 33 cars everywhere, except uh, so that we could have a full, quote unquote, full field everywhere. So I think that's to me what it should be, not this arbitrary number of 29 that we came up with for actually it's 27 for God knows what reason. I don't that's beyond me. And then just I don't know what he was thinking when he said that like there's drivers. Linus Lundqvist, he does not have a seat this year. He did fairly solid in his last season in IndyCar last year in his rookie season. You have Yuri Vips, who has been in the Ray Hall group for a long time, hasn't had a chance to get a seat. We saw Roman Grosjean, who had a good year last year in Juncos. He doesn't have a seat this year. You see some of these guys that made a bunch of spot starts for Dale Coyne. You're like you're Hunter McElroy did a good job in his car. Toby Sowery did a good job. These guys aren't in seats either. So it's like not to mention Teo Porcher, who doesn't have a seat anywhere. I just named 4 or 5 drivers that need seats, and the grid can be expanded, has the potential to be expanded, but IndyCar is just saying no. I beat this enough, and I don't want to. If the grid were to be shrunk again, we'd be saying, oh, Callum Ilott doesn't have a seat. Maybe Greenus VK doesn't have a seat. And we've seen what those 2 guys are doing. Look at VK's having a great year this year. I couldn't imagine, like, if he weren't on the grid this year, that would be just insanely baffling. So I've gone on about this enough, Ethan. But Tony Kanaan decided to go on Twitter mid-race, mind you. Granted, this is a team principal who is running the IndyCar Air McLaren operation. I'm pulling up his tweets real quick. I wanted to see it because I think he might have deleted it. Oh, unfortunately, oh no. So I think he deleted some of his tweets, but he did go on just tear into Scott McLaughlin on Twitter, saying misjudged last week, misjudged this week. It's like you don't really have like you shouldn't be talking because you're first of all not fast enough to be in a race car anymore, so that's why you're being a team principal. And second of all, the guy he hit, Nolan Siegel, is like 20th in the standings. He's not having a very good year. So for McLaren's Andy Arrow McLaren's recent tomfoolery, I give them a new award, the Organization of Ineptitude. Well, what, and they will hold this award until I find a new organization that is inept enough to get the award. But some good news, because not all news is bad news. Voight's and ABC Supply raised 4.7 million for homes for our troops. With that program was on the Santino Ferrucci car for the Indy 500. So it's always good to see teams giving back to their community. We talked about it this last year, how they did that. I don't remember what the number was, but we brought it up on the show. I think it's cool that they're doing it. Just I want to highlight that. Ethan, some big F1 news to talk about here.
Yeah, so you'll notice that I didn't talk about Lance Stroll at all during the Spanish GP rundown. Now you might think, well, it's Lance Stroll, you might not have to talk about him anyway. And to that, I'd say that's very rude of you to think. It was actually because he withdrew from the weekend after qualifying due to hand and wrist pain. Same wrist and hand that he had surgically repaired a couple years ago, prior to testing. And then remember, he kind of rushed back to F1 so that he could race in the season opener. Apparently that the pain has been something that he's just kind of been dealing with for a while, and it became too unbearable, to the point that now they're doing another surgery. I don't know the full details of that, but speedy recovery to him, of course. And yeah, he withdrew from the weekend. They're saying he could be back for Canada, but I'm not too sure. I'd say it's more questionable. Just because last time he tried to rush back, it led to there being another surgery a few years down the road. So unless they're like totally confident, um, I could see him sitting out of Canada. And of course, Canada is his home race. He doesn't want to sit that out. The team won't want him to sit that out. But it does beg the question of who could fill in. Now, Felipe Drugovich is Austin Martin's test and reserve driver. He's been in their system for a few years now. He has Le Mans on the same day where he is racing for Cadillac, but he has already said that he would forego that to race in F1 if given the opportunity. Um, Andrew, I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but if I was Felipe Drugovich, man, I'm not passing up a chance to race at Le Mans. Like any time you get a chance to win that race, and I don't know how good the Cadillac is, but he has a better chance of winning that than he does, getting on the podium or something in Canada.
That's definitely for sure. I'm trying to pull up where that Cadillac finished last year. Um, but yeah, he Cadillac, I as of last year didn't win in any WEC race. Trying to type and work here, but I do believe Dragovich was in that 300, number 311 Cadillac. That's qualifying. I don't want qualifying. I want the race. Where are you? I don't think they had a good running last year.
Okay.
May, maybe I just can't haven't found them yet.
I
Jim,
mean, if it's not that great of a car, then maybe you want to impress in F1. Like all it took was Nick DeVries to have one good substitute race to get a seat the next season. So you know what? Maybe it is right for him. That's going to be a decision that he's going to have to consider. But I mean, it kind of sounds like he already made it. Um,
uh,
but
they, they finished 29th overall, which was 31 laps down.
yeah,
They had some sort of issue. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
remember if it was mechanical or incident, but looking for 20. See if the Cadillacs have won this year because they have changed teams of who's running the Cadillac in the WEC. I do believe the Cadillacs. Yeah, the Cadillacs definitely have won in IMSA. I'm not quite sure uh, how many IMSA races. Yeah, they definitely have one in IMSA. Have you won in this year, Cadillac? The answer is no. Only the Ferraris have one this year. Wow, that's surprising. I didn't realize that, but yeah. Ferrari going for the three-peat at Le Mans. They've won it last 2 years. And the only two in this expanded hypercar era. Technically, Toyota won it in the past, but they were going up against respectfully nobodies. Now with Toyota, Ferrari, BMW, Cadillac, Porsche in the WEC, that is given Toyota more of a competition. I haven't won it yet. So yeah, Ferrari's 3 for 3 this year. Um, so yeah,
yeah. If it's not going to be Drugovich and they still need a reserve, Stoffel Van Dorn is also an option, but um, just like Drugovich, he will be racing in Le Mans. The Peugeot that he drove last year, that I believe he'll also be driving this year, didn't finish.
I think he's in Porsche now.
Uh, okay. I don't know. You know more about the WEC scene than I do, but I wonder if he could be an option. But if not, and Austin Martin wants someone to step in. I don't know if Jack Crawford is eligible. Someone I do know that's eligible is Valtteri Bottas, who could be loaned to Austin Martin for sure, just due to his familiarity with the power units. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't think that Lance Stroll should try to rush back. Health is number one, and if this is something that he's been dealing with for a while now, you, I'm sure he is taking it seriously, but he should take it seriously. On to
Yeah,
the next.
before we do, uh, Pascal Wehrlein is in the Porsche, and the Cadillac as a whole has won 4 IMSA races in its 2.5 now year stretch. 2 and 23, 2 and 24, none this year.
Mm, okay. Um, Moving on to our next bit of Formula One news. Max Verstappen is nearing a race ban. He has 11 penalty points now. The If you get 12, you get a race ban, and at the end of June, Max will have some points start to, roll off because they're only on your license for a year. So he'll be back at 9 points and it'll give him a bit of a buffer, but he'll need to be careful for a little bit now. And he's admitted that he shouldn't have done what he did. In Barcelona, he's said on his Instagram, "We had an exciting strategy and good race in Barcelona till the safety car came out. Our tire choice to the end and some moves after the safety car restart fueled my frustration, leading to a move that was not right and shouldn't have happened. I always give everything out there for the team and emotions can run high. You win some together, you lose some together. See you in Montreal." That's that. Christian Horner, the team principal of Red Bull, he talked about how Max is going to have to kind of hold it together for some time now, but it is only a couple of races until those points start to come off the books. But after he resets to 9, the next set of penalty points won't be coming off until the end of October. So still, it's something that Red Bull and Max are gonna have to be aware of. Yeah, and this Red Bull is saying that this next bit of news that we're going to talk about isn't fueled um by Max's penalty point situation at all, and maybe it isn't. I think that they would probably be doing this either way, but the timing does make it seem like that a little bit, although Helmut Marko was saying that it's not the case. What am I talking about, though? Red Bull is trying to get a super license exemption for Arvid Lindblad to participate in Formula One sessions. Lindblad, of course, is not 18, and with the current super license rules, even though he has, everything needed for a super license, he isn't 18 and therefore does not have the super license. So Red Bull is trying to seek an exemption, and it should be decided by either the time we're talking next week, Andrew, or at the very least week after. So shouldn't be a crazy long story that we're following here. But it makes sense. Red Bull probably wants him to participate in FP1s and things like that to get his feet wet because he is an undeniable talent that will surely be in F1 in some form or another in the coming years. So I totally understand it. I would like him to receive it because, I think it's he's almost 18 anyway. He turns 18 in early August. That's just a couple months away. It's not like he magically goes from not being able to drive a Formula One car at 17 years old, nearly 18, to magically being able to drive it once he does turn 18. Like he's shown his skill. There's not a magic switch that flips once he turns 18. So I'd like to see him receive the exemption. And then our last bit of news for Formula One, anyway, is about the 2026 calendar. Luke Smith, who covers F1 for The Athletic, put out an article, and we're kind of going to go through it together a little bit. There's a few talking points on here. The first is that Australia is expected to open up the 2026 season. It's not exactly surprising, but we see some years Bahrain hosts, some years Australia hosts. I think that the reasoning for this is due to Ramadan falling during what would be the first race weekend of the Formula One season, which is why Australia is hosting again. Yes, I believe that's what his article says. So Um, Australia, it's going to be on the calendar for a long time. They have a contract through 2037. Um, and it is expected to be the uh the first race of the season 5 times until 2037, and 2026 would count as the second of those 5 times, per the article. Next bit of news, Andrew, is we've talked about it in the past. I think I had a different opinion on it then than I do now. But it's Canada expecting to clash with the Indy 500 essentially because Monaco has agreed to move to a later date in early June, and Montreal has or it's not expected, it will. It's going to move from its date in mid-June to May. And this is for a couple reasons. One, it just makes more sense because it keeps the calendar um, more together regionally. Monaco, we see, you go Monaco, Spain, back over to North America, back to Europe. Now, the two North American races of Canada and Miami would come as a pair, and you would stay in Europe for the European leg. Um, and that does make sense, of course, from a logistical standpoint and an environmental standpoint and all of that. But what makes it unfortunate is that the move would, you know, make Canada clash directly with the Indy 500. Not only does the move get rid of, what we call the greatest day in motorsports, but the races would have to overlap. The Indy 500 would definitely start earlier than Canada. Um, in the Indy 500 usually goes green at 12:45 Eastern, and the F1 race doesn't really start until 2:05 Eastern. But there would still be overlap, and that's not good for either sport, really. I mean, it just really isn't. You don't want to make people choose. People can watch both at the same time, but who, you know what I mean? Like, is that really going to happen? I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. Um, from a logistical and environmental standpoint, yes, but I think that there's maybe a better way to go about this. I'm not sure. I think it could use some workshopping. That's all I'm saying. Um, and moving on to the next section, though, unless you want to say anything so far, Andrew.
I'm not a fan of this. I will
Yeah.
not be watching Canada. And now I probably won't be watching Monaco. I know I'm just a singular person, and
But
F1,
you're not wrong though. Like
like
this is bad for
F,
both sports.
like the FIA probably doesn't care. Oh, what's Andrew Hazley gonna think about this?
But it's not just you. It's gonna be multiple people.
Yeah, I would assume most Americans and most race fans, quite frankly, if you want to watch the biggest race of the year, quite frankly, better racing, watch the Indy 500. I wouldn't watch
Hey,
Canada.
Canada produces some bangers, but even
Canada
me,
does produce some bangers.
I'm gonna be watching the Indy 500. Like I don't care. Like I'm gonna watch the Indy 500.
Like another what's another F1 race versus the biggest race of the year? Mo Monaco, here's Monaco at least had its own charm to it, but
Sure, if you want to call it that.
it wasn't going against F
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't directly competing against the Indy 500.
like I don't I probably wasn't gonna watch Canada in the first place, but I might. It might be at a convenient time for me. I don't know. But at something like I decide to watch an F1 race the day of. I don't really plan that out in advance, but if it's convenient for me, I will watch F1. But F1 has just decided, oh, you're not gonna make it convenient for me because I can just look up the results after, and I don't see a huge need to it. The one benefit that F1 has compared to other motorsports products in the US is that it has no commercials. That's a great job by Sky and ESPN and all that group of people because American Motorsports does have that. I shout out Amazon Prime, who only does um, side by side commercials at least during green flag. But that is one good benefit to F1. But you can continue with everything, Ethan.
Yeah. Moving on, Madrid, that new circuit will be on the calendar in 2026. And since Barcelona still has a contract, that means there will be two Spanish Grand Prix next season, and they will be spaced out. So Spain will stay in its you know, current spot, and Madrid will close out the European leg of the calendar after Zandvoort, who is only under contract for a couple more years, and then Monza, of course. And what's disappointing is that this means no Imola. The track that is just so historic in F1 produced the best race of the season, in my opinion. Or at least the race that stands out to me the most. I don't know if I rated a race higher. Um, it's disappointing. Just I don't like it. I don't like it. Maybe the Madrid ring will produce some good racing, but the demolition or not demolition. What's the word? I don't know. Uh we saw like a video of a sim of, car driving around the circuit, and it looked pretty chopped. So we'll see. We'll see. Um and then for testing, um there will be some, since new regulations and all that, there will be some shakedowns in Barcelona before we get the official Bahrain tests. There will be two tests in Bahrain. And then we'll be off to Australia and the season will start. Um, so yeah. One thing that I do want to mention, that race in Canada, in Montreal in May, the weather that time of year in Canada is just impossible to predict, and it's like so rainy and wet. Like that race could go from, you know, potentially running against the Indy 500. Now it wouldn't, I don't think it would potentially run against the Coke 600 because of F1 races, they need to be done within a certain amount of time. But it could go from running against the Indy 500 to barely running at all. So either way, I think that it would not be ideal. And that's it for Formula One. Andrew is now gonna run us through the exciting, did I mention exciting world of NASCOURT?
Dudum, budum, budum. Thank you for listening to my beautiful noise making abilities. Yeah, NASCAR news. We have some updates this morning, Thursday, uh, from Bob. U.S. Court of Appeals has ruled in favor of NASCAR and vacated the injunction requiring NASCAR to treat 2311 and Front Row's chartered teams. The teams get 14 days to ask for the case to be heard by an entire appeals court judges instead of just the three judges who heard the case initially. The ruling today wouldn't go into effect until 7 days after that deadline passes at the earliest, which it would be as soon as Atlanta. Now, I'm assuming the team's lawyers are smart because technically it could be in as soon as next week, but they have 14 days to ask. They're gonna make sure they're gonna ask the Monday after. I believe it's Mexico City. Uh, and then have it be so they can guarantee the 3 weeks from now have the three races. Where they can still be as chartered teams. Chartered teams, the teams that were suing, they need an injunction because charter agreement says they can't sue NASCAR. Original judge's decision ruled that release of claims likely violated the antitrust law. Hughes Court said that the theory of the antitrust law is not supported by any case that it knows, so it vacated the injunction. So that I don't know what all that means. I'm not. That's a bunch of uh, stuff that goes over my head. Um, but yeah, I'll tell you. What I do know is the effects. Is that so? I'm looking at my Google sheet here. So Michigan, Mexico City, Pocono. That's the three that they've guaranteed themselves for. Right now, there's only Michigan's going to be 36 cars. Mexico City only has one open entry so far. So that currently sits at 37. And then Pocono at 36. So no open entries so far. And then throughout the rest of the year, there could be some races where these chartered teams aren't safe. You know, I look at Atlanta, currently scheduled for 39 cars. I could possibly see a 62 team or a 33 team showing up, maybe a 44 to put that over the bubble, and we could have someone going home. We already know we're going to have people going home from Chicago's the 66, 78, 33, 67, and 13 are showing up. That's currently one extra car. Maybe because 67 is owned by 2311. They might just withdraw that car from Coreyheim and push them to maybe Sonoma, where there's only one other open car, and entered at. And that's really it in terms of how potential bubble races right now. Uh, every other race would need at least three cars to put us at 41, which would send cars packing. We'll see. We'll come back in this 3 week time, say, okay, at Atlanta, and we say, okay, maybe these guys might have to run as open cars. But that's something that we'll have to look at. And maybe now some of these drivers could possibly sue the teams as in their contract that they sign. Oh, it says something along the lines of the team has to be chartered. Now, if the team is not chartered, that could lead to some interesting things. Oh, maybe some of these guys opt out of their contracts from 2026 because they have the option to now that the team's basically breaking that contract. That's something to keep an eye out for. Another thing to keep an eye out for are these six charters. They go back basically into NASCAR's hands. I would imagine NASCAR's not going to do anything with these charters. So, yeah, at least until this court case is resolved. if this court case is resolved, the teams will probably get back their charters and sign the agreement. If this court case that's if NASCAR wins. The teams lose, does NASCAR want to make them sign? I don't know. And this there's this third option, which seems to be the most likely option from what I've heard, is some arbitration agreement. So whether that includes the charters, which I would imagine it would, teams are going to be basically back as normal, I guess. But if they don't, NASCAR's at these six charters. Maybe the teams might have to buy these charters back, which would be a huge financial loss because these things are worth like I don't even know what the last one was sold for. They're going to be like 20 million now. So for both those teams, that's 60 million. Do you want to spend that after just had a failed lawsuit if it goes that way? I don't know. Or will NASCAR just give teams charters on based on how they feel like? There might be other teams trying to get charters. I look at Garage 66, who's been competing for the last decade or so as an open team, showing up to whatever races they want. They might want a charter. RFK Racing, I believe they only own two of their charters right now. They might want a third for their third car. That's a team that's gonna want one. Uh, I also see another team, Legacy Motor Club. They're midst of a lawsuit, their own lawsuit with Rick Ware Racing on a charter. They can just go out and get one. I know maybe you might see a Junior Motorsports. They might try to get a charter. This might be a perfect time for that. So there's a bunch of other open teams that might get one, like an NY Racing or a Live Fast might try to do some sort of revival. Or maybe a Richard Childress Racing might try to get a third charter for an Austin Hill or Jesse Love. We'll see. Um, maybe call it. There's a lot of dominoes that could fall. Depends which way the dominoes fall. It affects what other dominoes will fall. So there's a lot of interesting hypotheticals that can go this way or that way. We'll see which way the hypotheticals go. There's a lot of things that are up in the air. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Corey LaJoy signs a 9-race truck deal with Spire. And normally this wouldn't be something I talk about. But I'm going to remind you that this was a guy who turned down a full season truck ride because he said something along the lines of racing on Fridays and Saturdays don't mean anything. It's not the exact verbiage he said, but that's the uh
That's the
the thought kind of. And then this is also a guy who was traded away from Spire, and now he's re-signing there in the truck series. So that's just all around idiot move. So Corey LaJoy, you get the chicken award this week. Not much else to say there. Just remember, kids, if you're gonna say something that's kind of out there, stick with it. Don't make yourself look like an idiot and kind of go back on what you say.
Yeah.
Uh, Speaking of open team news, Connor Zilic to compete in Atlanta and Watkins Glen races for Trackhouse. Watkins Glen, he can fit the field nose. He's very, very good at Watkins Glen. Arguably his best track. Won there on debut in Xfinity. Almost won there on debut in ARCA. He got booted by Jesse Love from the lead on the last lap. Uh, I don't know if he's going to do trucks or ARCA, but if he does the four, I think there's a world that he can sweep all four. Just saying. You'll probably be very tired by the end of it. It's probably not going to happen, but yeah. uh, bad timing behind the idea of scrapping the NASCAR France family-backed Spire entry. We've heard this in the as a rumor for a while that NASCAR was going to field a team, and yeah, that's probably for the better that they're not going to, especially with this charter nonsense going on right now. And kind of, I wouldn't say questionable, but yeah, bad. But you see Penske and IndyCar, a lot of turmoil there because he owns a series and a team. IMSA owns a team as well, Action Express Racing in IMSA. That's the team that Felipe Drugovich is slated to drive for at Le Mans. Fun fact for you. But yeah, it's kind of yeah a good time too. They were gonna have Matt McCall crew chief it. I don't know who the driver that they would have tabbed for that necessarily, but yeah, that's interesting to learn that this was in the works and they were going to do it, but they decided to scrap it. And I think that's probably for the better right now. And our final piece of news, Atlanta Motor Speedway rebranded to Echo Park Speedway. This is not the first time a company has named a speedway. Infineon was the title sponsor of Sonoma for a while. You had uh, the Auto Club, which is some sort of AAA thing. That was the name of California Speedway for a long time until its removal from the Cup schedule. You had ISM Raceway for Phoenix for a little bit. You had Lowe's Motor Speedway for Charlotte, and now this. Also Worldwide Technology at Gateway. That's what that raceway is called. But yeah, Echo Park Speedway. We've seen Echo Park branding for a while. The first time I remember seeing it was with the inaugural Roval race where Chris Buescher spun and it picked up uh, a wall sign, an Echo Park wall sign on the back of his car and rode around it under caution for a half a lap like that. Uh, well, it's kind of interesting that the same people who own uh, Speedway Motorsports, Smith family, also own Echo Park. So that's interesting to note. Kind of like how Hendrick Cars sponsors Kyle Larson, a Hendrick team type of a deal. Yeah, I'm still gonna call it Atlanta for a while. You've heard me say Atlanta twice with these NASCAR news, so that's just there. Um, into the previews.
And now for next week's race previews.
Michigan, no open cars, like I said this week. The five, I have Denny Hamlin, who's won there twice, Joey Logano, who's won there thrice, Kyle Larson, who's won there thrice, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, who have each won there once. Honorable mention being Tyler Reddick, who's won there once. It's been off the pace a little bit lately. Some truck series uh, drivers changing. O1 will be, or not the O1, the regular one. There's no zero in front of it. Lawless Allen for Tricon. O2 for Youngs will be Nathan Bird. 2 and 22 for the Rayum brothers will be Morgan Baird and Josh Rayum. Norm Benning will be competing in his sixth truck. Spire duo will be Corey LaJoy, as mentioned, in the 07 and Carson Hocevar in the 7. Ross Chastain will be in the 44 for Nice Motorsports, and Luke Fenhouse will be in the 66 for Thor Sport. So that ends the previews. Nothing really special at Michigan. Uh, the only 2 mile track, the only 2 mile oval in NASCAR. Uh, Pocono is a triangle, so that doesn't count as an oval race. I don't know if you knew how shapes work, but there you go.
And now for next week's race picks.
Into the pick points.
Let's do it.
Ethan
Andrew,
has,
I had a very good weekend.
yes, you did. Ethan, you have 161. I have 138. Guess have 116. Last week's totals, you had 18. Morgan doing the guest picks, I had 15. I had 14, so I'm last few weeks I've been slowly dropping back. The last 4 weeks, you have gained on me in all 4 weeks. It's not very good. The guests have actually gained on me in 3 of those 4 weeks, the last 3 weeks. So I am on a not good streak, but it's only minimal losses in the 3 week stretch to the guests at least. That's only 8 points in 3 weeks, so just not bad in a 3 week stretch. Not good either. I've lost in the stretch to you. I've lost 16. So yeah, got to get my act together. Only 2 races this week, so a very uh, small week. Looking at last week's results, uh, I threw away 6 points by swapping my picks. You and the guests both picked Marie Boya and Rafael Camara. Camara won the sprint or the main race. Boya was a higher finisher of the two in the sprint race. Did I call Camaro won the sprint race? He won the feature race. Alex Dunn was the higher finisher of the three drivers picked, giving a point for the guest in the sprint race, and Jack Crawford was in the feature race, the highest finisher, giving a point for me. The podium, I got 2 points for having Lando and Oscar on my podium in the wrong positions. Same to you, Ethan. The guests, uh, Morgan had Oscar Orlando, so that's 5 and 3. Who got third? Is it Charles?
Hmm.
Okay, making sure that's right. You and I got 5 points for picking Dennis Hauger and Indy next. Uh, I have made an error. I have not given anyone points for IndyCar. We shall have 1 point for getting Alex Palou right, so I'll fix that now. Actually, I'll fix it later. Just remind me too after we're done here, Ethan. For trucks, I got 1 point for Heim beating Smith. I got 5 points for Allgaier winning, and you got 5 points for Blaney winning Cup. So there we are.
Good shout from me.
I don't know if I said the gaps. Right now, you have me by 23 and the guests by 44, just tied for the worst they've been all year. So yeah, the guest this week is Eric making picks. So in trucks, I'll let you explain your pick because you and Eric made the exact same pick.
Okay, well, I'm actually gonna spoil my Cup Series pick then, because I picked my Cup Series guy first, and that was Carson Hocevar. And the reason I picked Carson Hocevar is because dude has been on a heater recently, and he's gonna have to win at some point soon, I feel. Um, I've been really impressed by, like I said, I could take or leave the uber aggressiveness, but the results have been there. He has really impressed me with the results recently. I feel like he has to win. I think that Michigan should be a good track for him. I don't see any reason why not. Um, and it just feels time for his first win with the way he's been driving. So I picked him to win the Cup race. And then I found out that he's also in the truck race. So I got a little bit greedy and I was like, you know what? Why not? Carson Hocevar with not only his first Cup Series win, but a sweep of the weekend, if what I have written down actually comes into play. And that's that.
Eric with the same thing in the for the guest. I think historically, drivers from Michigan have not fared well in Michigan in the Cup Series. You look at Brad Keselowski, one of the best drivers of the time, hasn't won in
Doesn't
Michigan.
mean anything, bro. I don't care.
Eric Jones hasn't won Michigan. Just saying.
That doesn't mean anything. I don't care.
Carson Hocevar's from Michigan. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I picked Corey Heim in the Truck Series. He's far and away the best competition. I don't need to say it. I don't need to rehash any new information there. Just yeah. And then I picked Kyle Larson. He's done well in the past. He hasn't won in a Hendrick car. If my reading did serve me right, and my memory served me right too. Yeah, it's kind of amazing because when you thought of Kyle Larson in his Ganassi era, the best tracks for him were the Michigan, the Auto Club, and then Richmond for some unknown reason. I don't think he had the chance to run Auto Club in a Hendrick car. He might have in 22 if I don't know. Enough that was the first year they took Auto Club off, or last year they had Auto Club on. I don't remember. But this is a track that he feels like he should be good at. He just hasn't won there. I'm not quite sure why, but I think it'll click for him. And Eric going Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell kind of seemed. I don't know if this is quite true, but kind of seems like Christopher Bell is kind of taking a little step back as of late. He did win the All-Star race, but looking at his recent points races since the All-Star race in eighth and the 10th, which is not bad, but just nothing great. He did have a second in Kansas the week before the All-Star race, but has only had, well, since his great 3 race win streak, he's only had 3 top 5s in the next 9 races. So that's kind of interesting. He's had 3 more top 10s in there as well. So that kind of does show that he still had the speed. It's not quite where he could be. I don't know if he's won there in Xfinity. I feel like he probably has because how dominant he was in Xfinity at the time. Uh, actually, no, he did not win in Xfinity. Did he win there in trucks? No. So we'll see. Uh, is that all you got, Ethan? Do you any final words for the folks?
See ya.
Goodbye.
To me, it looked like he actually lost the wheel.
The wheel for Ross Chastain is still and perfect.
Wheel on the track.
Did you leave the wheel loose?
You picked a fine time to leave me loose, wheel.